Please welcome to the stage Maria Nebres.
Hello. Love is the solution to everything. Have you ever heard of the story about a woman who lifted the car to save a child from having been pinned under it? That's love. That's the force and power of love. Or something closer to home. You know when you have all the time in the world and you know, without a doubt, that you're going to be there for your daughter or your son's dance recital or that sport game, even though it's 3 hours across town after a long, hard day at work. That's the power of love. You just do it. Now, in the workplace, imagine you and your team members are coming together, and maybe you've experienced this. You come together, you're gathering, you're having a cup of Java, and you're reminiscing fondly about a time when you rallied together to accomplish a very important and complex business project. A change that had a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that you guys all rallied together and worked on. And what you remembered wasn't so much the nitty-gritties of the metrics that you were told you had to achieve. You're sitting there and you're chit-chatting with each other and you're laughing even through reminiscing about the blood, sweat, and tears because you know that you did it together. You know that you trusted one another, and you know that you formed this unbelievable bond that produced something collectively, collaboratively, something that you could all be proud of. That's the same as the two scenarios I just painted you, but it's only in the workplace. It's coming from love. One of the realities out there is that we call on love all the time and we know its power, more on the personal side. And as leaders, we have a tendency to forget that we're also people. We tend to forget a lot of times because there are pressures everywhere coming at every single angle for us as leaders. We have to think of everything. We've got to think about the culture, the wellness programs that we have to put together so that we can rally our teams. And, yet at the same time, we're thinking about the costs that we've got to cut and the people we have to please through politics to getting and negotiating the results. Why? Because in this business world, we live in a reality where it's very fast-paced with lots of demands going on. So this is why we are left as leaders thinking, well, where are we going to find the solution to this? I mean, this is so overwhelming. I'm proposing that the solution is love. And if we could, just for a moment, think about and imagine a workplace where you found that one source that gets you the ultimate super secret ingredient to tapping into that high engagement that lasts you and that produces unbelievable results with your team. That's the force, that's the power of love. Imagine that. Now, I can understand if some of you today are sitting there going, oh my God, she's talking about the L word. I can understand that, totally understand that. In the next few minutes, what I'd like to do is share with you, and I'll do my very best to illustrate something that helps you to understand that there is science behind this and data that backs it up. My name is Maria Nebres. I'm a human resources practitioner with over 25 years of experience providing services that are strategic and tactical for my clients. And I help high-performing leaders navigate through love so that they can get back to that source for quickly gaining high engagement for themselves and for their people, so that they're able to achieve aligned productivity for exceptional results that everyone can be proud of, can be a part of, can be moved by for themselves and for others. In today's business world, we are facing a revolutionary shift. It's the kind of revolutionary shift where our now current, which will and is probably becoming the old way of managing and leading, is moving its way out so that it's being replaced by, I won't call it new, but it's a higher level of leadership. The kind of leadership where it raises our consciousness for how we take care of ourselves in a better way. This better way of how we relate with people and how we actually do that, taking care of ourselves, relating with ourselves in a healthy way, to do that as well with others. And then to receive the results from that. And that's an interesting thing that I want to share as well, is because in the workplace, it's really easy for leaders, for us to think about this dilemma. There's lots of dilemmas that go on in the working world, as you can probably imagine or experience. You experience it. And we've got dilemmas. One dilemma is, do you choose love and engagement, or do you choose the bottom line? And oftentimes they conflict. I get it. I understand, because I've been there. I'm here to propose to you that you don't have to choose, that you can actually have both. And it requires this thing that I call the love engagement model. And I highlight it in a book that I wrote called Love in the Highly Engaged Team. It provides you with utilizing love and applying it not just in your family life, but in your work life as well, and in the way you lead others to a cause. I'm reminded at this time of a client of mine. He was kind of my favorite client, partly because it didn't really feel like I ever worked with him, really. He was really a lot of fun to work with. Loved his brain. He was the kind of leader that was so highly analytical. He knew the bottom line that he wanted, and he was actually really good at obtaining the kind of funding he needed from external sources, partly because he was highly strategic. He wasn't so good, though, on the people side, and I'll never forget the time. It was my preliminary discovery session that I had and with him. I'll never forget this. He said to me, "Maria, my biggest problem with leading is the people." And I find it odd because you're a leader, and 90% of your resources are people. Here's the thing. He had a dilemma that he had to deal with, and it required him getting from his core genius, which was on the analytical side. That was his core genius for the organization. But he had to lead these people, and these people had to be moved from multiple site locations into a centralized location. And the issue wasn't the logistics of moving them physically. It was the fact that you were bringing together people, as he had shared with me, that never got along. One group of people thought that they were bigger and better than the other people. And so he was put in that dilemma. He knew he had to do it because his funders wanted him to do it, and to achieve all the while, get that done at the same time as achieving the high score of engagement, employee engagement. So he said to me, "I'm up Schitt's Creek. I don't know what to do." I said, "Well, I'm wondering why you'd be interested in working with me. I mean, I came highly recommended to him from one of his board of members who was a chief human resources officer to a financial services company. And I had worked with him for that organization previously and put together a respect in the workplace program as well as an ethics program for non-retaliation and whistleblowing. He had mentioned to me, well, you know what? This board member just recommends you. He knows that you're going to get me for whatever reason because you did some collaborative work, working with employees as well as managers on this project. He thought that that John, my now client, and I would get along and we would be able to solve this problem for him. So he said they've been in their jobs for so long that they're so highly entitled, they think that their shit doesn't stink. And that I can't make a move without them being skeptical because they've earned that. They've earned their right to keep that location. And you know what? Frankly, Maria, I got to tell you, I know it's not very nice to me, especially since I'm a leader, but I am sick and tired of people. So that was really an issue, and that was also the greatest starting point for us. It was the greatest starting point because we were no longer being fake about it. We had one of the goods that we were going to use to address what it was, and that was going to be the gap between where he was currently and where he wanted to be. So it was all good. In those 2 years, one of the successes around it was that we were able to identify that people's core geniuses can never be tapped into if you don't allow them to use it. And that is an element of love that I think is very important. In order for you to have that right level of focus and the right level of actions to be committed so that you could take care of transforming and moving, and you're transforming. When you want this and you're stuck here, you are transforming. So it is important to have a razor-sharp focus with actions that stick to that success, to take care of it. To take care of some of it is that out of the comfort zone and fear that you have. Those were some of the things that we addressed, and all the while saying this was in the umbrella of love, because this is what love is. When you go back to the scenario that I mentioned, you know, that mom that saved a kid from under the car, that was coming from the fact that you don't take that long to think that this is the right thing to do. You don't take that long. So in the 2 years, we worked there's a lot involved in this that I cannot simplify for you today. But I'm sure many of you, and Facebook, I think, who've worked with me, you would understand because you know you've been there with me. And what I wanted to share with the new audience is that love is the solution to everything. I promise you. I promise you that there is a science behind it, and I promise you that there is data to prove it. In the workplace, some of the data we may be craving for because we want that empirical information and that evidence to show that, yeah, let's focus on it now. Well, employee engagements have been happening for the last 20 years now. It's saying the same thing over and over and over. I could tell you, and you'd probably be nodding your head, and I'm sure you are. And I'm sure you know. Lack of communication, lack of trust with management, a lot of infighting. I don't have enough resources. You know, in Canada today, the recent studies show 27% of employees are engaged. In the US, by the way, for American citizens, it's 32. And interesting, 88% of leaders indicate that it's their work and leading people that are their biggest stressors. Over 60%, whether they were employees or leaders, they say that the organization doesn't have enough to provide them in tools for how to actually manage stress. This big word called stress, which, you know, we don't really know how to handle. Mental health statistics show you that. The one thing that really stands out is one of the survey results that I read, that more than 90%, more than 90% of leaders indicate that how they handle stress is that, and manage it, is that they remove themselves, either mentally or physically, from that stress. Now, what if that source of stress is their people? Because that is the case. But if you're a people leader, you are a people leader and you own up to it. So what if in that 90%, that leader chooses to remove themselves from that stress, their person? That's just one example of the kind of an environment that tells you that it's pretty loveless in the workplace. And all you have to do is walk around in some of the work environments like I did. Going back to my story of that client, John, his people were getting ready and they were so resistant to this centralization. And in the game plan that we put together, not only did we work out a game plan that made sure that we leveraged everybody's core genius so that they could all be focused on being a part of the solution to the centralization that was going to happen. We also identified that it was really important that they would get involved and that they would be able to have a stake in shaping the kind of culture that they wanted. And that is also a form of love. In the end, after 2 years, one of the biggest successes that I feel like I've gained from it, and John would attest to it as well because he felt it also with his people, and his people still call me to this day, and that was, I would say, about 8 years ago. In terms of results, for at least 4 consecutive years, they achieved this approach of moving themselves from the current state to a required end state, and how they kept together unified, cohesive as a team. They, for 4 consecutive years, managed the highest employee engagement results in their industry. Yeah, they were quite proud of it, and to this day, they talk about it with such reminiscence. They talk about the blood, sweat, and tears. And sometimes it's me involved because they call. Do you remember that time when we were sitting on the floor? We didn't know what kind of picture was going to look good for, capturing it for employees. I mean, I remembered inviting the leadership team, and they were so stodgy and stuffy that I said, you know what? You guys are coming over to my house. I make the meanest Korean beef barbecue. So come on over. And so they came over and we literally created together. It was so artful. It was so great. And that was the pinnacle point and starting point of how they were going to be with their people through that engagement strategy and the involvement strategy that I worked and facilitated with them. Now, for me, the personal success was years later, I walked into their workplace, and what I saw was it was the same people. Some individuals left, and attrition is not a bad thing. What was unbelievable was that in the time that I first saw them, they were pretty loveless. They were skeptical of their leaders, walking around in the hallways, just, wanting to do their job, and that was it. And if they were relating at all, it was with people in cliques that kind of protected them and made them feel really comfortable with the fact that this is us and that is them. So, non-conducive to love. Evolving and growing to a kind of group and a team where they're collaborating more. You could actually hear them singing down the hall. You could hear more conversations going on. The feeling and the vibe is truly loving. You're no longer the leaders, and John had mentioned this, they call me Mer. Mer, You know that song by the Black Eyed Peas, Where's the Love? And it's so true. It's different now, his environment. So if you can bottle up that force and power of love so that it acts as your source for tapping into high engagement and sustainable results, and apply it, not just in your home life, apply it in your personal life, apply it in the workplace. I have a method for that, and I highlight it in my book, as I mentioned, Love and the Highly Engaged Team. And it is something that I think would be wonderful for workplaces today, because today is the time. That revolutionary shift that I was mentioning to you, it's a shift that I call the love revolution. And it's the kind of revolution that really does raise our awareness and our consciousness for a need to have a better caring for ourselves and for others, for our environments in the workplace, in society. Now, we always have choices. You can choose to follow the love engagement method. You can choose a different form that also is in the same vein. And we are in a time right now where we're rich with information, great information, that this revolution is coming. And I'm so proud to say that I'm one of these people. I know what it's like to be an employee. I know what it's like to work with an employee. I know what it's like to lead. I know what it's like to be an individual who walks around in every single environment that makes demands of us. And I can empathize with that. So when we talk about love, and we talk about the fact that it is, in some spaces, we call it woo-woo. I don't really know what that woo-woo is, because love is love. There is no other label. If you can get good with that and you can understand that that is your game-changing, as John put it, that was his game-changing thing. He ended up loving his job more. You could see him relating with his people. There are other methods out there, I'm sure, and that is your choice as well. Or you can take the choice of staying the same. I know all too well some individuals, some leaders who are not at that point where they're choosing that, and that's fine. What they choose, though, in some instances that I've witnessed, is they choose the source of their power to be the bottom line, which is external results. What you end up getting from that is what you see today. Low engagement scores, high turnover, and that high turnover, it is important when that high turnover is attached to your high performers. And you don't know how to retain them, especially in this day and age where the emotional contract is no longer. People know that they can get other jobs. And absenteeism rate is high, but what's even equally scary is this whole thing about presenteeism, where you've got people walking around. A dear friend of mine indicated, yeah, it's like walking around like it's a zombie world. And bring back the love in the workplace. Stop with the fragmentation. That's my message. And I am determined to make sure that I promote this. And I want you to promote it as well. I'm such a big believer of it because I love employees. I love leaders. I love people. And don't we all? I invite you to take out your cell phone today. I would love to share my book with you for free. My number is 416-988-5524. That's 416-988-5524. And in that text, all I need to see, 4 letters. And what is it? Love. Just put it down, and I promise you to give you that book, and we can take it from there to see what next. I'm so excited for this time for all of us. And I want to thank you for the time that you took with me. Wishing you all the success and much love. And remember, if you've got a disgruntled employee, love is the solution. If you've got a big, huge problem to tackle, love is the solution. Love is the power. It's the solution to everything. Thank you.